Hello, and welcome to an episode of Ask Kate with me, your host, Kate, brought to you by the Children's Tumor Foundation. Today, I want to talk a little bit about an email that I received from a mom. I really like making videos that are based on emails that I'm actually receiving. I find the feedback is really positive. I think that it really makes things feel more accessible and reminds us all that there's a real community of families that are out there living with NF, raising kids with NF, trying to figure out a diagnosis, which is the case in today's email. So today I received an email from a mom who has a son who is 10 years old who does not have a formal diagnosis of NF at this point. In fact, she has been largely unaware that NF even existed or might be something for her family to think about until recently. So the story that she explained essentially was that she had found these videos online, which I'm always thrilled when people find these and then that they're helpful for them, and then that I get emails as people reach out to me as a result. So that is fantastic. So her son is 10 years old, and she did know that from birth he had a couple of large cafe au lait spots on a leg, on a foot. Was never really a major concern. There's a cousin in the family with some cafe au lait spots, just 2 or 3. And so, as I've said before, birthmarks are kind of a normal aberration, something that we do see in a lot of people, and they are not related to any specific diagnosis. That's a lot of the reason why we say that in order to really seriously consider a diagnosis of NF1, we want to see greater than 5 cafe au lait spots that are greater than a half a centimeter in size, right? So the number and the size do matter, which we've talked about before on these videos. So now that he's 10 years old, she started to notice a few more of these cafe au lait spots. It's not clear whether they're new or whether she just hadn't noticed them before. And they do seem to fit the criteria in terms of size as well. So she also was talking just a little bit about her son's background, that he has been diagnosed with a learning disability and ADHD, and that at the age of 4, they were told that he had a form of very high-functioning autism. So some of these things are sort of soft symptoms or soft signs. Those things can all be related to a diagnosis of NF1, but without any kind of a skin exam or some of the freckling, the cafe au lait spots, those things, a diagnosis of ADHD or autism would not trigger anyone to consider NF1. So she goes on to explain that last year, after a car accident, she had taken her son to see a chiropractor for some adjustments, and he was concerned about scoliosis, but later an appointment with a spine specialist ruled that out. So as a result of kind of all of these things, she started to do some digging and some research. She also shared that since he was 5 years old, he's been dealing with chronic migraines, but that he had had an MRI done and that it had been normal, and he'd been diagnosed with complicated migraines. So there's just been kind of a lot of different things that maybe weren't connected. So one of the reasons I wanted to share this story is because I think it's common, as I hear from different parents and individuals living with NF, to say, oh, in hindsight, once we got the diagnosis, all these other pieces started to make sense. Now, there's 2 sides to that. So on the one hand, that's really helpful, right? To be able to say, okay, so we're not happy or excited necessarily that our child has been diagnosed or that I have been diagnosed with a form of NF. But there is some sense of relief when you say, oh, all of these different things, that it just kind of felt like another thing and then another thing and another problem. Now they all kind of fit under this one umbrella. And the relief that comes with some understanding and a way to move forward is a very real experience for people. And so we just want to acknowledge that that matters and that that's part of the journey. We also want to talk about the fact that sometimes as a result of kind of seeing these different symptoms, right, we try to make them fit into something, right? We say, okay, we want them to all be related. We want a neat little package, a box that they all fit into called NF1 or NF2 or whatever that diagnosis is, right? And it doesn't always work that way. So mom sent me some photos of the cafe au lait spots she's found and asked me pretty directly whether I thought that a diagnosis of NF1 would make sense for her son. So I want to share that as well, because I always make it clear in my responses that there's no way I could make a diagnosis. You could fit every criteria and send me an email and send me photos and send me medical records, and it would never be appropriate or something that I would do to make a diagnosis for you or for your child. Now, having said that, I completely understand why she's asking and why she's reaching out to us, and I was really glad that she did. So I went on to explain that the best approach, honestly, is to go take him to somebody who is very familiar with NF and is familiar with making that diagnosis and has seen kids with it. So we talked about the NF Clinic Network. I told her where there was a clinic near their location, which in their case they were in luck that there was one. There are over 50 NF Clinic Network clinics now in the United States, but that is still not enough, and we need more, and that is something that CTF is dedicated to making happen. So we talked about where she could go for care and for a really high quality evaluation, and so she's pursuing that now with some help from me, kind of getting connected to that clinic, which is something I can do. So for example, the clinic I recommended, she had been trying to get in touch with for several days and kind of was not sure which phone number to use and whatnot, and so I was able to use just some of my connections of knowing the coordinator and whatnot to help get the kind of grease the wheels and get things moving for them. We also talked a little bit about how, I can't give medical advice and I can't make a diagnosis, but with everything she shared, I think it's appropriate that she pursue this evaluation and possibly testing if that's something that her physician recommends, and that I thought it made sense. So I will often reassure parents, you're not crazy to be wondering about this, and I think it makes sense for you to be pursuing this and to get more information. Essentially, I think as a mother myself and as a nurse and as somebody who's worked in the NF community for almost 15 years now, there's a lot of value in understanding and having more information and going to the right places to get that information, right? So the internet is only just so helpful, and then we need to start talking to the professionals and the experts and having, appointments with clinicians who really understand NF. So the kind of the end of the story is that she's pursuing those appointments. She's doing that stuff that, that she needs to do to try to get these answers. And I'm, hopefully I'm going to hear how this ends and what ends up in terms of a diagnosis for her son. But it's always exciting to me that people are tuning in and watching these videos. And as a result of that, I'm hearing from the community. So please keep it up. If there's anything that I've shared in today's video that triggers a question for you, I would love it if you left a comment below or sent me an email. I love hearing from you guys, and it's been a really great experience to be able to interact. So again, please get involved, leave a comment, ask a question, send me an email. I would love to hear from you.